The Pirates dropped 3 of 4 to the Marlins in Miami to open the season, and everything that happened, well, it's all the stuff we've been screaming from the mountaintops they'd struggle with. Plus, what do you do with David Bednar? And that's next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Pirates your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Gary Morgan. I'm the host of Locked On Pirates, and every Monday here, I'm going to try to give you a weekend rewind, and I'm going to give you a look at the week ahead. Those are two features that are going to be on every single Monday. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So the weekend rewind, not that you want to revisit it. I understand entirely, but it's necessary. We have to talk about it. The Pirates are 1-3. 3 Marlins walk-off victories in this godforsaken opening series. Where do you start, right? Let's go with who was good. Starting pitchers. I mean, I would say all 4 starting pitchers were more than serviceable, did exactly what you would hope to see them do. That's Andrew Heaney most recently. Bailey Falter looked really good. Mitch Keller looked exceptional. Paul Skeens, we talked about already on Friday's show. But just to recap, that stretch of starting pitching went well. The last remaining starting pitcher we haven't seen yet is Carmen Mlodzinski, probably the one we don't expect to go super deep into a game, and we probably have the least amount of faith in him as a starting pitcher, but that's where we're at. Who was bad? You want me to take up the whole segment, or do you want me to just talk about the ones that were really bad? Let's do that. Ji-hwan Bae was really bad. Really bad. As good as he looked in the spring, boy, he looked entirely lost. He looked lost at the plate. He looked lost on the base paths. He looked lost at times in the outfield. Made a couple nice plays out there, but, just not great in general. In fact, it's early to say like, oh, this guy's this or this guy's that, or you should make changes because of one weekend's worth of games. But there are times when a player can be so bad that you are left with no choice. And Ji-hwan Bae was just functionally a terrible, terrible player this whole series. I'm not even sure what got into his head. He couldn't even lay down a bunt. A guy like Ji-hwan Bae should not be striking out 3 times in 4 official at-bats. Okay? I mean, like, brutal stuff. And you can't even use him as a pinch runner because he's going to make a mistake. Like, in Sunday afternoon's game, they used him as a pinch runner, which makes all the sense in the world, right? Everybody on this team has been stealing bases. They just set a record for stealing bases. And, we'll talk about that a little bit more as we continue the rewind. But everyone's stealing bases, even the old guys. I mean, Tommy Pham's stolen a base now. 2 of them, actually. Joey Bart's stolen a base. So you think Ji-hwan Bae is your best bet, right? You're going to get a stolen base out of him. Nope. He's scared to death to pull the trigger on that. Scared to death to take that lead off first base, to take that jump, to actually go. Refuses to. Gets to second base via the walk. So you figure, hey, no harm, no foul, right? He's at second base. That's what you intended anyway. Ball gets in the dirt, and inexplicably, all of his inhibitions go away. and he takes off for third base and he gets thrown out. I just want to understand where the tentativeness comes from a straight steal when your team has been running with absolute reckless abandon the entire series. Almost everybody that played, except for Nick Gonzalez, who basically busted his ankle early on, Brian Hayes, who, you probably don't want to be testing him too often on the base paths and asking him to do extra things, and Jared Triolo, who just never got on, had a stolen base. Ji-hwan Bae should be in that class of people that have stolen bases, right? Nope, he's one of the 4 that doesn't. Partially because he couldn't get on base, partially because when they do put him on base, he doesn't know what to do with it. It's so sad to watch because Ji-hwan Bae's got a skill set this team really could use. They really could. The speed could really play. We watched it play in the spring. We watch him push the envelope. We watch him push the action. We watch him slap hits to left field. All the things that you want to see Ji-hwan Bae do, you watched him do this spring. The Pirates give him another chance, probably against the better judgment of most people. Give him another chance, and he has just come out of the gates looking like they probably shouldn't have given him that chance. O'Neal Cruz really struggled in the outfield. I think some of that's to be expected. It's still a fairly new position to him. We're talking a guy that's got like under 25 games out there so far in his career. That said, some of these things that he's doing, they're not the kind of things that come from inexperience in the outfield per se. They're the stuff that come from not paying much attention. And the reason I say that is because we're talking about like cutoff man throws, right? Well, who was in charge for the Pirates of going out of his way to receive most cutoff throws last year? That's right. O'Neal Cruz. In fact, they were even doing StatCast to show how far he would travel to get himself in line to receive a throw from the outfield before making the throw home. So of everybody on the field, O'Neal Cruz is one of the people that should be most familiar with when a cutoff man would be required, when you should try to throw to a cutoff man, right? The reality is O'Neal Cruz has a cannon for an arm and he wants to play with it. But he's got to learn when he can and can't play with it. The stuff like with playing bad bounces off the wall and that stuff takes a while. That stuff is not the kind of thing that I'm going to blame a player who's fairly new to the position for. I'm not going to go off on him about that. Throwing to the right base, though, it's burned them a couple times just in this series. Now, granted, the Fish got nothing to lose. They've got all young kids. They're just running too. They're just playing hustle baseball. So are they going to maybe go when another team wouldn't go? Yeah, sure, here and there. That stuff's going to happen. But O'Neal Cruz has got to be a little smarter than that. Andy Rodriguez, first base and catcher. How's that working out? I think today's the lineup for Sunday, I think you saw what Andy, being the catcher, the backup catcher, and the first baseman is going to do. Whenever they're going to need Andy to be the backup catcher and actually start a game, you're going to see Bart sit, and you're going to see somebody else have to play first base. This is going to create a lot of things. Like if it's Triolo, well, you can't rest Hayes then. And that's what we saw today. It was time to rest Hayes. And you wound up having to play Triolo too. And what it creates is like the ultimate Sunday lineup. Right? So this team that struggles to score runs already, now they're sapped even more. Let's pretend Endy's been hitting. He hasn't. But let's pretend Endy's been hitting the baseball too. It's not like you want his bat out of the lineup either. If you play him at catcher, you want to be able to do something reasonable at first base. Right now, they don't have that. They don't have a reasonable player there. The last thing I want to talk about before we take our first break is Gonzalez out with the injury on the 10-day IL. We obviously don't know how long that is. It certainly probably won't be 10 days. Emmanuel Valdez gets the call. I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to hold that for after the break. When we come back, I'm going to talk about why it might have been Emmanuel Valdez as opposed to one of the names that most of you were screaming for, like York or Cook. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. You never know who's going to win. Look how close Bobby Moe came the other night. I mean, if that didn't get you excited, I don't know what will. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates here. I promised I would try to explain why maybe Emmanuel Valdez gets the call instead of Billy Cook or Nick York or any other of the number of players that you might want to see. There could be several reasons, so let's just go through it. First, they're probably seeing Adam Frazier as the starter at second base. And if Adam Frazier is the starter at second base, well, whoever you call up, you're not looking to give them a ton of at-bats. That's not what they want to do with Nick York or Billy Cook for that matter. So that kind of puts a little bit of a check mark in the Emmanuel Valdez bucket. Second, he's got a decent amount of major league experience. It may not be the greatest experience, but he's got a lot of major league experience. That's a guy that can sit on the bench and survive. He can play a little first base. We just saw on Sunday why that might be important. Again, if you want to have Endy be your backup catcher and your first baseman, it's going to create some awkwardness, and you better have somebody that can play over there. Yes, I know Nick York could, but what do you do the 5 days a week that Endy's playing first base with Nick York then, right? So no, you could easily say that should be second base. Maybe it should be. I'm just telling you what I think they may have thought. That's all. The other thing, and this is a little more abstract, but when you sit down with players as a coach and you have that conversation with them that they did not manage to make this team, and you've got to send them down to the minors, and here's what you need to work on to get back here. Yes, there are situations that can arise with injury that would have you change your mind. And yes, it's perfectly acceptable if that's what you choose to do. But in this situation, nobody had any at-bats at all in the minors. So they've been sitting around for about a week already, doing nothing. And you just got done telling them they weren't good enough to be here. It's really hard to backtrack on that, right? So you wind up maybe again going with a guy like Valdez who's heard that speech from both ends multiple times, understands it. There isn't going to be any hard done by feelings there. Nick York and Billy Cook hadn't even played a game yet. They're just getting settled in Indianapolis. Probably just got done unpacking their paper plates and stuff. I doubt they're doing dishes. I mean, I'm just saying they just got done unpacking, right? So you probably don't want to turn around and have them come right back. Especially if you think it's going to be a short-term thing. Like if you think Nick Gonzalez is going to heal up here in 10, 15 days, well, maybe you want to get by with somebody that you don't necessarily think is trying out for the gig. That's all. Should they go with Adam Frazier? I mean, before this weekend, I might have told you absolutely not. But Adam Frazier was one of the very best players that they had this weekend. I thought Adam Frazier saved the game a couple times on Saturday defensively. That game could have been over more than once. Could have been over if Conine doesn't make a great play on Jack too. So, in fact, there was another great play to Rob Valdez on Sunday that could have probably put this game out of reach, at least until Bednar came in. Which leads me to the segue of Bednar and Holderman. What do you do? The back end of the Pirates bullpen was a disaster this weekend. Those two are the back end. Immediately, you've got like Dennis Santana, who I think is probably your best choice for the closer position, at least for right now. I would start using him in the 8th and the 9th at least. That's where I would aim. They've got all these lefties they're trying to work in. Caleb Ferguson has looked excellent, and I mean excellent. So I think he's a guy that I would probably want to keep seeing a little bit more of. Perhaps you allow him to move back, but he's already been playing in like the 7th, so how much further can you really move him back? I'm not sure he's got the kind of stuff to really be a freak back there. Ryan Barucki looks like a guy who's at least in the right kind of headspace and physically looks all right, like he could do it. David Bednar people are hitting 571 off him. He's got a whip of 6. He's got an ERA of 27. 2 losses already on the young season. We've only played 4 games. That's your closer. And Colin Holderman hasn't been much better. He's got an ERA of 9. He's been in 3 games so far. At least he managed to get 3 innings pitched. David Bednar's been in 3 games and only got through 1 inning so far. Colin Holderman eventually will be okay. He will. I like his stuff. A little snake bitten, I would say, on the first game. The last game was really on him. And then he gave up the game-tying home run on Sunday. So it's not been great. Those two need to drop back. They both have options. They could use them. That's one thing that they could do. Do I see them doing that? Not really. But is it something that they could do? Yeah, I suppose. The problem is in AAA, a lot of their best options are starting pitchers. That's not really where you want to go right now with that either, right? It may very well be that whoever they call up here for a spot start, they might be smart to leave them up here, let them stay in the rotation for a second, and get Carmen Baginski back into the bullpen mix. I mean, I saw some of you on social media crying for, getting Nicholas back up. Well, Nicholas really struggled in the first game with the Indians too. So that's not exactly a pretty picture right this second. Plus, again, just got sent down, just got told you're not good enough, told to work on control. What does he do? Come out and walk a couple guys right away with the Indians, So maybe that's not the way you want to go with it, really, right? I mean, do you want to call up the guy with a 27 ERA and pretend it's a fix? Hunter Stratton, if they think he's healthy enough, is a guy that perhaps could come up here and contribute pretty quickly. Again, I'm not sure that's an 8 or 9 guy. The scary thing is, I feel like they're going to feel the need to keep trying with Holderman, at least. And I think there's some merit to that. Bednar, on the other hand, if you want to keep him on the roster, to me, you got to move him to the 6th and the 7th inning. You got to primarily use him when you're down runs. You have to hide him. And if you don't hide him, You've got to demote him. And I don't know what good it does to send somebody like David Bednar to Indianapolis. He's in his head, though, right now. He thinks everything he throws is going out of the ballpark. And when you think that and you're a pitcher, guess what you do a lot of the time? You throw up gopher balls. That's what he's doing. It's not been a good thing, man. All I can say is it's a situation that will tank this season real quick if the Pirates don't do something. I don't know how you can retrain them. It's not like David looked great in the spring. It's not like Colin Holderman's ever been the type of guy that looks like he's just going to give you clean innings. He's hard to hit when he's really doing well, but he also misses the plate an awful lot. So he's Kyle Nicholas with a little bit more polish on him, and maybe we don't need the polish. Like maybe it's a situation where both guys need to go down. You just shock the system, send them both down, bring a couple different guys back up. How much worse can it be, right? Best case scenario, you have 2 reinforcements that come back up. Let's take another quick break, and then we'll do the second weekly segment that's going to happen on Mondays, the week ahead. It's important to get ready for what's coming. All right, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. It's time for the week ahead. It's welcome, because who wants to look back anymore? That weekend was brutal. They have a chance to right the ship here against the Rays. The Rays are always a tough team. I don't think they're a threat to win their own division this year, and they're nicked up too. They're injured, and now's a good time to get a hold of them, right? Lowe's on the IL. I think they just lost their starting pitcher that was supposed to open against us too. So good shot that the Rays are down a little bit. Now, that doesn't matter when you just lost 3 or 4 to the Marlins, right? The week ahead, though, Carmen Baginski goes tonight. Then there's an open slot on Tuesday, which means they've left it to be determined. And Paul Skeens goes to finish up against the Rays, which sets it up so that Mitch Keller gets the home opener against the Yankees. It was set up that it would have been Bailey Falter, so I had some suspicions they might do that. But what are their options for Tuesday then? Who pitches on Tuesday? Indianapolis was rained out for their second and third games after starting on Friday. So that they played on Friday. They looked awful, by the way. They got punched in the mouth offensively and defensively. It did not go well. Braxton Ashcraft had a really terrible outing, and none of the hitters did anything. So then it rained on Saturday and Sunday, so no other pitchers have gone. They don't play on Monday in minor league baseball, so that means the Pirates really should have their pick of the litter as far as who they want to come up here and fill that spot. I don't think they can go with a bullpen game, if only because I think their bullpen is already stretched. And I think after a Carmen Baginski start on, tonight, I think you're probably going to see them get stretched a little more. And that's through no fault of his own. That's not with me assuming Carmen Baginski is going to have a terrible game. It just means if Carmen Baginski has a terrible game, you're probably going to need your bullpen for 5 innings or so. And let's just assume they're not anxious to go back to Holderman or Bednar, right? If they have a lead. So who knows what's going to happen with that bullpen. I could see some changes having to take place. They could call somebody up, like I would think you'd want it to be somebody on the 40-man, which would lead you to Ashcraft or Burrows. Again, I don't think it'll be Ashcraft. He just pitched on Friday. Doesn't mean he couldn't again, but he looked terrible. So likely you don't want to go that route. Mike Burrows makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. First of all, he's on the 40-man. Second, he's already had a little bit of major league experience. Granted, a very little bit, but a little bit. But he's a guy you might want to call up. I don't know that you want to go with Harrington or Chandler. They might be the best. They would certainly be available. But to me, unless it's going to be a long-term move, at least you have the idea that if they perform well, you're going to let them stay up here and be part of the starting rotation. I can't see doing it. Now, you could, if you wanted to go with, like, say, let's say Harrington's the guy. You start him on Tuesday, following up Carmen Majinski, and then instead of sending him back, you send back one of those other bullpen arms. Like maybe this is what you do with Bednar. Maybe you do send him down and see what can happen with him. Maybe you send Holderman down. Maybe you send out one of the lefties that you kept, and you keep Majinski up here too, and move him back to the bullpen. Let's see how his start goes. Maybe his start's so good that you want to see more of that. I mean, I'll leave that door open. He was a starter as little as 2 years ago, so I wouldn't mind seeing what he can do. But this creates a problem, and I get not wanting to have Bailey Falter open your home opener. I mean, I'm going to the home opener, so I wasn't exactly ecstatic about watching Bailey Falter pitch. Not that I have anything against him, but you want somebody that you feel a little bit better about, especially a lefty facing that Bronx Bomber lineup with their new cheater bats or whatever that I guess aren't cheater bats, and they just came off clubbing the Milwaukee Brewers. I don't know that I want a lefty going in there and facing that lineup, and Aaron Judge the way he feels right now. So I don't know. I think I would go with Burrows probably. Let's see what he does. And if it plays out a certain way, I could see him taking over that fifth spot and keeping Majinski around. That's my initial gut, though. After that, guys, go right into the home opener against the Yankees, like we talked about. Now we know we'll have Mitch Keller. I would assume we're probably looking at mostly all the same position players, but that Endy situation at first base and Bart, and like trying to use him as a backup catcher at the same time as you're using him as a starting first baseman, I think is going to come to a head rather quickly. First, Endy hasn't looked good. And I don't know if it's just too much for him, but when you talk about like not getting results versus not looking good, Endy is much more on the not looking good territory. Taking some walks, 4 walks, I'm happy about that. Striking out an awful lot. It really doesn't look like he has a firm idea of what he's trying to get accomplished at the plate. I don't really think Endy's a guy that I've seen like that very often. He doesn't have a hit yet. 9 at bats. It's kind of been a mess. I don't know that you can continue to move on with him as your starting first baseman. Your alternative, though, is, Jared Triolo, who also doesn't have a hit. So, or Emmanuel Valdez, who I guess at least hit a ball hard and drew a walk. Regardless, things are not where you'd like them to be in Pirate Land. That's all I got today. I really hope that we are talking about more positive things as this week goes on. Stay locked, everybody.